do a lot of shows.
Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of The More You Nole, a podcast about Florida State University. I'm your host, Mike, Director of Social Media for Florida State's Office of Admissions. Thanks for downloading this week's episode. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, you can find us on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can download podcasts. You can also find prior episodes of the show on our YouTube channel and on our website, admissions.fsu.edu/podcast. This week, we have a panel of guests from Florida State University's very own Flying High Circus, which is one of only 2 collegiate circuses in the nation. Chad Matthews and Celina Dezutto are the circus's director and assistant director, and Adam Rhoads and Dali Santana are 2 current students and members of the circus. We'll talk about a whole bunch of things, including the history of this unique institution, what it's like to be a student in the circus, how to get involved, and so much more. And just as a programming note, you'll hear them refer to a place called Callaway or Callaway Gardens a couple times. It's a resort in southern Georgia where the circus goes every summer to do camp programs with children and to entertain guests. This was a really fun conversation, and we hope you enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoyed recording it. All right, I'm here with a roundtable from the Florida State University Flying High Circus. I think I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves since we've got 4 of you with us today. And we'll start with Chad.
Hi, I'm Chad Matthews. I'm director of the FSU Circus. Thanks for having us today.
Hi, Celina Dezutto, and I'm the assistant director.
Hi, my name is Adam Rhoads. I'm currently a rising senior, majoring in environmental science and policy. And in the circus, I perform double trapeze and a tight wire.
Hi, I'm Dali Santana, and I am a rising junior. I am studying criminology and Russian, and my acts are jump rope, Spanish web, and cloud swing.
Cool. So to get started, I want to have a little history lesson. I know Chad has a wealth of knowledge on the circus, so I'm wondering if you could just give us like a really short crash course on the history of how Florida State's Flying High Circus came into existence in its early years.
In 1947 is when the FSU Circus came to be. It's the Florida State College for Women became coeducational that year. They were dealing with an influx of, or about to deal with an influx of male students, a lot of which were actually soldiers returning home from World War II under the GI Bill. So there were a lot of male students coming in to campus, and as such, Florida State at the time was, the new Florida State University was trying to determine and create programs that would be like coeducational, and the circus. It just happened to be that the athletic director at the time, I believe his name was Howard Danford, just happened to have an acquaintance in the Midwest. His name was Jack Haskin, and he was brought down specifically to create a circus program, a coeducational, non-competitive program that could kind of take in all these male students in an activity that they just didn't have then. From there, a lot of weird things happened. After that, they decided they'd have a football team. Coach Haskin was kind of recruited for that as well. So he was actually one of the first football coaches as well, in addition to creating the circus. I kind of feel like they were kind of making stuff up as they went along. But yeah, so that was the program. That's how it started. They actually had a plan to create a circus pretty early on at Florida State University. And Coach Haskin developed the program. And as such, I kind of mentioned the tent part because it is a defining feature of our program as well. And that took a little bit longer. Not until the 60s did we have our own big top tent. Prior to that, we performed in the football stadium. I guess it was called Bill Campbell at the time. I'm not even sure. But we performed in some of the gymnasiums that I don't believe even exist on campus any longer. The first show was in a gym, and then subsequent years were in open air acts in the stadium. And in the 60s, we got our first big top tent. And from then on, we've been performing in a big top.
So how many shows does the circus put on each year? I know it's a lot, right?
Yes, we well, on campus we put on a dozen to 15 performances. I think that's about right. That may be a little more than we do. We do 9 in the spring. We do 4, 5 in the fall. And then in the summer, in a normal summer, we would actually be working at Callaway Gardens with a program that we've participated in since the 60s as well. And we do about 60 shows per summer there. Those are a little different format. They're shorter shows, but we do a lot of shows there. So, yeah, 75 to 80 shows a year in a normal year.
Wow. And I know you have a couple themes. So how do you guys decide on the themes for the shows?
I'll let Celina answer that one.
Yeah.
The themes are, it is a collaborative process. I think that the initial theme idea is come up by the staff. And I don't know how we get there. I think Chad actually comes up with like that initial idea. I think we were supposed to do a sci-fi show this year called Cosmic. And I'm pretty sure that was Chad's idea. And then the details of it, the individual acts, that we work with the students and kind of are influenced by everything. The act, what it kind of reminds us of, people's ideas. We get students who are like, I've got 100 ideas. And you're like, oh, thank you. And then you get like just one little tidbit that's just like, oh, sparks your imagination. So it's a pretty collaborative process.
That's cool. All right, so I have a couple questions. Well, obviously, I have a ton of circus questions for everyone, but I have a couple non-circus questions for our student guests today. The first thing I always want to know every time I speak to a student, I think it's just because I work in admissions and it's kind of like on my mind all the time. But I just want to know, why did you decide to attend Florida State? I guess we could start with we'll start with Dali.
Well, I have Florida prepaid, so I was going to stay in state, and I was touring around schools, and Y'all won't even believe this. I was touring around schools and they brought me on campus, and I was a competitive gymnast for about 10 years when I was growing up. And I was looking around and they said, here's our circus tent. And I was like, oh, what's that? And they told me more about it and that anyone can audition and everything. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So I went ahead and auditioned, and here we are. And now I'm at FSU.
I guess my journey to choosing Florida State was based upon like growing up. Growing up, our family was never like a football family, you could say. I didn't know that FSU had a football team until high school. But I grew up doing summer camps at Florida State, whether it was like Boys State or whether it was Hobie. And when you're doing these summer camps and you're on campus, of course you see a circus tent. So that was like in the back of my mind when making the decision. But just UNF, I'm from Jacksonville. It was too close to home. UF reminded me of an office park. But Florida State felt like a legitimate like college campus, and it being like the state's capital was also something that made me attracted to it. So my sister, I have a twin sister who is also in the circus. She got into Florida State. I got deferred. And then I ultimately got in because I really badly wanted to go to Florida State. And then I made it to Florida State, and here I am today.
Awesome. I'm glad we got you in. Both of you, the answer to this one is definitely not going to be the circus. I want to know, what is something that surprised you about Florida State after you got here?
For me, honestly, it was not having that scary of a campus, because I grew up at private school my entire life. So I was with the same like 300 kids from kindergarten to 8th grade. So my first public university or like schooling was going to FSU. So I was very scared walking around on campus, but it's really weird. But the brick was very, very calming to me. It made me feel very at home. I don't know why, but I loved the brick. And just the atmosphere, honestly. Like no one just seemed like mad at me that I was there. Like everyone was like cool and Nole.
I think something surprising for me about Florida State was coming from the pond of high school where I grew up with the same people for 13 years. We all have kind of similar beliefs, opinions, life backgrounds. And we all care about each other in that extent. And then coming to Florida State, which is such a huge ocean of diversity, inclusion, opinions, people of various backgrounds. And then having nobody necessarily, like you can be whoever you want. And it was just like mind blowing to me that it's such a big pond with so many people that it was in a sense like a culture shock for me. But the more I found myself getting to know other people and diving into like different communities and stuff, then I noticed that I started to grow as well. So I guess I'm surprised at the growth. I'm surprised at the growth I didn't expect to have.
That's really interesting. I love those answers. So I guess this question is also for our students, but I think Chad can chime in too, since he also is a circus alumni. I want to know, what was your first impression of the Flying High Circus? And then what do you think of it now that you've been in it for a while? We'll start with Chad on this one.
I'm probably the most biased source you could have for this. I think when my first impressions of the circus were probably completely different than like Adam and Dali's, because my first tour around campus, the tent was down. It was pretty typical. That's just how the operation ran in those days. The vast majority of the year, the equipment was down. So it looked like a kind of a rundown field at one point. So you would see the bleachers would just be sitting there in the open. And so it's kind of hard to visualize what they were getting at because you had no idea. So when I started, it was didn't know what to expect at all because, and to date myself, it was the world before the internet, or at least as it is now. And there wasn't a lot of promotion of it. So I'd never seen pictures of it or video. Certainly not. Never even heard of it really before. So didn't really know what to expect. So my first experience was literally going into the warehouse, which we call our building. And it's a warehouse. And it was even more of a warehouse then, because it was green and there was nothing on, it wasn't labeled or anything. So it was totally different. And so I think the thing that was surprising about it was just getting involved and meeting the people. And it was really surprising because it is kind of we have a pretty diverse group and just, I don't want to say strange, but in a good way. I'm not speaking for now. I'm saying this is when I was in.
They're still strange.
in a good way. Yeah, it was, and obviously it was kind of like what Adam alluded to. Like, it was very quickly like a kind of a group that you could identify yourself with within the context of a gigantic university. And that's what was really kind of special for me, at least as a student, is like just finding kind of a home within a bigger community, you know?
What about Adam? Let me hear from Adam next.
My expectations of the circus was, I mean, when you're on campus, it's kind of hard to miss the warehouse and the big tree. And you don't expect to see that. I never saw that on any of the college tours I went on. So initially I thought, oh, that's like very cool. Like, how about I try out just for fun, just to see what happens to say that I did it. But now, since being a part of the organization, so many thoughts. I think the biggest one is how tight knit it can be. What you put in is what you get out of it. And I think a lot of people in the organization put a lot into it, so they get a lot out of it. But now looking at the circus tent, I think it's probably the most quintessential part of my experience at Florida State. And this may be an exaggeration, but I feel like I learned more at the circus tent than I did in the classroom, in the sense of interpersonal skills, learning about people, learning about myself, learning about teamwork, work ethic, cooperation. But yeah.
My first impression of circus was when I went to the Parents Weekend show my freshman year. And Parents Weekend shows take place after auditions. So it was after callbacks too. So we're just waiting to see if we made the cast list. And my mom took me. She was like, let's see what you're getting into, because I had never been to a show before. And so I saw it and I was like, okay, I can never do any of that. So this was a good run. So we'll find something else to do. I'll join a book club or something. And then I got in, and here in this place in my life right now, like, especially with everything that's happening, whenever I think of circus, it reminds me of home. Like, that's the overarching theme that always comes up, because the place, the people, like, I remember when I was having a bad day, I wouldn't even want to go home. I would want to go to the tent so I could be with my friends and everything. And there's so many things that you learn. Like, I completely agree with what Adam said. Like, I feel like I have learned so much being in the tent than I did in the class, because it's just crazy the life experiences that you get, just having to not only deal with people, but also trust those people, that they're going to rig your act up right, that you're not going to come crashing down, that they're going to catch you and stuff like that. You don't get that kind of experience where you learn how to really trust someone like that through just going to school. You get that from doing something like this.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that. That's really interesting to hear. With the you really definitely have to trust people. You said that, and the first thing I thought of was just like a basic trust fall exercise, and then I immediately like extrapolated that into like someone on a trapeze.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a lot of trust involved in that. That's for sure. Okay, so my next question is more admin focused. So I think let's go with Celina. One of our listeners sent us in this question, and they said the circus seems like such a huge operation. How do you guys pay for all of it?
Well, we make mostly our own money. We work so hard all year long. It never stops. We have the 15 like academic normal school year performances we do. We do parents' weekends. We do the Halloween shows. We do the home show series. And then we also do 2 summer programs. And in Tallahassee, we're doing a program with like little kids, 7 to 17, to learn circus acts. And at Callaway, they're also working with children and performing all the time. So it's like, we're a little business on campus. It's just always just chugging away. You gotta make that money. So yeah, I mean, we do get some support that Chad could talk about more specifically about how we make the money that we don't directly earn.
Yeah, I can expound on that a little bit if you'd like. So yeah, like Celina said, we essentially cover our expense budget based on all our performances and our summer engagements, and that's one of the things that we're kind of unique in. You know, we generate the majority of our operating revenue in terms of expense, and then we do receive some assistance in terms from like A&S fees that kind of, because we're a department within the union, the Oglesby Union. So some of our salaries are covered by A&S fees and things. So so we're not on our own completely, but we're very proud to generate, like, to be like not a burden at all in any way to the university financially, but we're actually generate the majority of what it costs to run the ship. Right.
Oh, that's really cool. I did not know that. Oh yeah, and I guess those activities and services fees are also like when students can go to performances for free. I mean, if your parents show up, it's I think it's like a couple bucks. How much is a standard ticket?
Tickets range from 10 to 25, depending on what the show is and depending on where your seats are. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like our students who participate, and in a similar program, they would have to pay just to participate. Circus is kind of expensive to run. There aren't, so our students who are in the program don't have to pay anything. And obviously the students who come see the show don't have to pay anything either.
Yeah, all of that is backed up by those fees. Just like, I know we were talking to the Student Life Center a few weeks ago. If you want to go see a movie at the Student Life Center, you just show your ID and just walk in. It's covered by the fees that you're already paying to go to school here. one of the best things about Florida State, I think, is that it's almost like an all-inclusive resort. You just show up and then you can just do whatever you want, and there's almost never an extra fee on top of it. Let's see. Okay, another listener question. Someone was wondering if any Flying High Circus performers have gone on into professional performance careers, I guess in the circus specifically or otherwise.
Yeah, we've had quite, I wouldn't say it's not a majority or anything. It's kind of cyclical, as a matter of fact, but we do have quite a few students who have gone on to perform, some to perform and some to work in the production end of live performances, particularly in circus. Cirque du Soleil is a giant company. We've had many students go into like the rigging and production side, and a few performers in Cirque du Soleil. And off the top of my head, we probably have 4 or 5 different performers now who are working, well, as much as you can work performance at this particular moment in time, but are working in performances. So, yeah, it's not our goal and mission really to develop performers. But I think it speaks to the amount of work and training that the students do, that they can develop those kind of skills to parlay them into a career in some cases.
Yeah, and that's just from, I mean, not to diminish it or anything, but that's just from an extracurricular activity. That's not, 4 years of you can't get, as much as people like to joke and call us a clown college, you can't get a degree in the circus.
No, yeah. And yeah, they're doing this in between their classes. And, we try to scrape any time possible available in their schedules to so they can rehearse. And it's not a lot if you were comparing it to like a professional act or something. Like it's a real minimal amount of time, but yeah, it's really impressive.
Yes, that actually leads perfectly into my next question. This one's for Adam and Dali. What is it like balancing your schoolwork and your commitment to the circus? How do you manage that?
Somehow, some way. It gets crazy at times. Sometimes I feel like I bite off more than I can chew. But for some reason, somehow, probably the coach's scheduling and how well they do it around our schedules, we're able to make it work. I think a big thing is if you're in the circus, you learn a lot of discipline. At least for my experience, I know I did, of having a perfect circus practice, classes, studying, and then social life balance. Granted, there's some weeks where it just doesn't work itself out, and it's more so on the academic side than the circus side. But there's ways to make it work. There's ways that I have found to make it work.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to do it. I agree completely with the somehow, some way theory. But it just kind of becomes like, well, I got to do circus. It's not I guess I gotta give it up. It's like, I could not imagine being a Seminole without being an FSU Circus Seminole. And people are always doing homework in the tent too. Like, I will be, say you have practice from 4 to 4:30, and then you have another practice from 5 to 5:30, from 4:30 to 5. You're sitting in the hut or our old warehouse, and you're doing your homework. And then as soon as it hit 5, you go to do practice, you come back and you're all sweaty and gross, and you sit down and you do more homework.
Exam week must be pretty stressful.
Yeah.
Going off the balance thing too, thinking about it, balance goes beyond like academics. So for me, the circus knocks out like 3 different things. 1, it knocks out a place for me to physically like improve my body. So it's kind of like a gym in a sense. 2, all my friends are there. So that knocks out the social aspect. And then 3, it's very like mentally healthy for me. It's something I do for myself. So I'm able to like be emotionally, socially, physically fit. So
that's great. All from one activity. I love it.
All one activity.
Okay, so kind of getting more into some involvement stuff. Why do you think students should get involved in the Flying High Circus?
Like we had said before, like there are a lot of things that I feel like I only learned from being in the circus and in the tent and being in that community environment. And I don't think that I could have gotten that anywhere else. And on top of that, no freshman 15 for me. And it's just the best group of people. It really is.
Yeah, going off of that point of why join the circus? I mean, if you think about it, of all the colleges in the United States, Florida State is home to one of two collegiate circuses in the nation.
Only one percent.
Yeah, and we're the only one with a tent, mind you. So it's kind of like opportunities there. Why not take it? Every other college has a Greek life program, and that's not to downplay Greek life, but
I'm in life too.
Yeah, you can balance multiple things. But as Chad was mentioning earlier, circus is pretty expensive to do in general. So if you're at a place where it's able to be financially compromised and you have the ability to do it, especially while we're young and we have our youth, why not do it? You know, when's the next time we're going to be able to audition for a circus? I don't see many opportunities.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make for some really great stories. I know one of my friends, when I was a student, she did trapeze, and she has so many cool stories from back in the day. She loves it. I think she still keeps in touch with like a ton of her circus friends too.
Oh yeah, everyone stays in touch a lot too. I know so many alumni that I thought that I would just be like names and I would never put a name to the face. But then when I went to Callaway, I was shocked at how many alumni still come because they find it to be like, that's how homey it is. Like everyone just wants to come back.
Yeah, I guess, can I just add one more thing about why joining the circus is important? I remember when I was a student and coming to FSU, even though I was from Miami, which is a big city that was just filled, everywhere there's people, I felt so small in a really big place. And I wasn't part of the circus as a student, but I started working at the circus soon after graduating. And I just saw this space from the outside that was just, I don't know, like these friendships that people make and this confidence that the students have of having a sense of place and something that they're working on and succeeding at. And I don't know, it just like, it still impresses me. I guess impresses is the hard word, but just like makes an impression on me, the amount of growth that the students experience. Like Adam and Dali were saying, not just physically, but mentally, the way that it helps to transition into adulthood, because you have this, I mean, the students say it all the time. It's a home, it's a family, it's a community. And I don't know how obvious that is, the need for that when you first get to the university. But the circus provides that on top of just being like, oh my God, you're doing circus. Now you can put someone on top of your head.
So obviously the circus, like, it's a great opportunity to do something really cool and incredibly unique at a college. How do students get involved? How can they sign up and how can they run away and join the circus?
Typically, now this fall is going to be clearly unique, but typically our process is the first 2 weeks of the semester we have open signups for auditions, and the only qualification you have to meet for audition is to be a current student. So we don't require any experience. And from there, we go into auditions. So we have an audition process that lasts a few weeks now. We're still kind of putting trying to figure out how that's going to work this year, obviously, and we're going to move as much of the sign-up process online as we can. And obviously, auditions are going to look a little bit different than they have in the past. But so our auditions are pretty basic. We don't expect, like I said, we don't expect any of our any incoming students to have any experience. So we don't do anything that would require such in these auditions. Basically, they're just ways we can kind of measure some degree of fitness and flexibility. And we do try to talk to every single student in what we call an interview, but it's really quick because we want to at least get some feel for the interest of the student and why they are interested in the program. So from there, we usually have a second round of callback auditions that we go where we would normally go into more like circus specific activities. So more of how we would how people would fit into particular roles in the show. So we run about 20 different acts in a given year, each of which have a different number of of members that would participate in those acts, and a different kind of skills that are required to be in those acts. So we look at all those things through the audition process, and then we, knowing how many available spots we have for each act, we then cast the show. So in general, in a normal year, we would have in excess of 250 students probably audition for the different roles. And then out of that, we have to kind of get that number down to around 100, basically, to make it manageable for us to be able to hold rehearsals and supervise the cast. That's as quickly as I can tell you the actual process of like casting and auditioning. But it's like I said, it's open. We'll have when we actually get it live, it'll be all available on our website. So if students are interested, they'll be able to find it on our website or our Facebook page. Or Celina manages our Instagram page as well, and does a great job of promoting on social media as well.
Right. If students want to get involved, but they don't necessarily like want to be on stage performing, are there opportunities for kind of like behind the scenes roles?
Glad you asked. Yes, that is actually something I should have mentioned. But yeah, we do have a production team because we try to produce the most professional looking show we can. That requires people and people that are now students who are performing. Also, one of the unique aspects of our show is students who are performing also do a lot of the logistics in the show in terms of like raising the rigging and clearing it, all those things. Those fall on performing students generally. But also we have to run audio and lighting. We have to cue people out, all the backstage work that would be necessary in any kind of stage show. So yeah, there are positions available for students to fill those roles as well.
Right. And then I know to talk about kind of another way to get involved with the circus, I'm just going to venture a guess and say this probably isn't going to be an option this fall, but I know there's also a Circus Fizz PE credit basically that students can take. Can someone give me some details on that one?
Well, yes, I can. And yeah, you're correct. This year, we obviously there was with classes going online, there wasn't really an online delivery option for our circus class. So we had to not run it this fall, but typically there is one. We are only able to offer one section of the class. There's not a lot of opportunities space-wise, just based on the rest of our schedule, but we do offer a class every fall. And it's kind of meant to be kind of an overview of the circus experience, kind of. So you get to try a lot of different acts. You get to learn a little bit about production. And at the conclusion of the class, we actually run a abbreviated kind of final performance with the students. And some of those performing on stage, some of them working the production side of it as well. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you need one credit to round out your semester, I think that's probably the coolest thing you could possibly use it on.
It's pretty cool, but I'm biased.
A little bit.
Sorry, Chad had also forgotten to mention some other production opportunities. So if you are interested also on the back end of stuff, the Halloween show is a huge. We usually have like 20 people volunteer to do all of our very intense makeup we do for Halloween shows. And luckily, everybody's really good at makeup these days. It's, I think, Instagram and Pinterest for that. But if you have any interest in doing makeup, it's just like, do you want to paint a blue alien and make her a beautiful, glamorous lady? Come to the circus. And then I also typically have an intern who works with me up in the costume department. Not that many people know how to sew, but it seems like every year somebody does. So if you have an interest in sewing, there's also some opportunities for that as well.
That's really cool.
I apologize profusely. That was a gross oversight on my part. That is a very important component of our performance. I'm sorry, Celina.
Okay, so I want to get back to our students here. I want to know just what's it like performing like under the big top, under all the lights in front of like your friends and family and like the whole student, well, not the whole student body, but a chunk of it.
Performing under the big top is like a feeling like no other. So looking back on my time in the circus, my sophomore year in the Halloween show, I was a banana. And there's something so humbling, so honorable, something so exhilarating than going in front of your whole entire university dressed as a banana peel and having a fake ball and throwing it into the audience and having the audience throw it back and making comical jokes out of that. And just having yellow lights on me as a banana, and then to have 1,000 eyes on me, and then to poop out a banana at the very end.
Should be noted, it's not real. It's
not real, of course. Or maybe you have to come to find out. But it's just a phenomenal experience. There's literally nothing like it. There's nothing like performing for your peers, for your family members, and all these months of hard work finally being paid off and put into a show, and like the synthesis of like the artistic value and like your physical abilities. It's just amazing.
It's like the coolest thing in the world. Like serotonin overload. Nothing brings me more joy than thinking about shows. It's the most amazing thing because that's when it all comes together and everyone's always so excited. And I had a humbling experience too. I was so excited because I did Callaway after my first year. So that meant I got to be in some fall shows, or the possibility that I would be in fall shows. And my jump rope team was in the Halloween show. And Cece gave us our makeup. And I was so excited to see my makeup. And it's this blue alien. Okay, this is what we're doing. And we had to paint our entire faces blue, including our ears. I had blue paint in my ears for months. And we had to wear like a blue morph suit. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is going to look I look ridiculous. Like, man, like also I'm 4'11". So it was really obvious which one I was. And it was just nerve wracking. And then as soon as we got to see our families afterwards, because everyone gets to come up onto the floor, which is so cool after the shows. And as soon as we saw them, no one even said anything about oh, like you're blue. It was literally, that was so cool. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. It was, how did you do your own makeup? Who does your makeup? Did you guys make your costumes? Like, it's just, there's nothing that beats it. Nothing that beats it.
And it's really impressive looking. I mean, I've seen the circus a couple times, the costumes and the makeup and like everything. It's like, you know, if you just like brought someone in blindfolded and you didn't tell them it was a collegiate production, I think they would think it was just like a completely legitimate, like full on like commercial enterprise.
Thank you.
You guys are so impressive. I love it. Okay, I want to move into actually, no, I don't want to move into our lightning round. First, I want to ask what everyone's favorite circus memory is.
So one of the things that we used to do a good bit, just kind of how the operation has changed a little bit, is we used to go on the road a good bit and perform. So we'd literally take the big top. Our old big top was 240 feet by 120 feet wide. And we'd take it, we'd pack it up in a truck and take it all different kinds of places. And I was fortunate enough to do a show in the Bahamas with, and we took the tent there, and we did the kind of a setup. We brought a setup crew to start. It was actually over the Thanksgiving break, and we took 12 students, and 12 of us put up the big top in just over 2 days. And it was hard work, and it was disgusting, and we were kind of miserable. But it was probably the most rewarding thing I ever have ever done, particularly as a student, is being able to walk in an open field in another country, essentially, and walk away 2 days later and have a basic professional big top set up. Was something I didn't expect to get into as a college student, but
cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
We used to go to the Bahamas.
Not a lot. We did it a couple of times. I only went twice.
So cool. If we ever go again, I have a passport ready to go.
Duly noted.
My favorite memory was this moment that happened, I can't remember if it must have been 2 years ago. And it was the last home show of the series. And the last home show is typically the show where the alumni come and they're all at the show. And when it's the alumni show, they're extra rowdy and they're very supportive and they're always clapping. And the boisterousness of the audience is, you can really feel it, and it makes the performances better. And it's just, there's like an excitement in the air. And I typically watch the show from the side of the tent in this little nook. And there's a tradition at the end of each show where the ringmaster says, and until we meet again, may all your days be. And then normally it's just the circus students, the performers. They're all around the rings, and they say circus days together, and they do take a big bow. But this one, the alumni were there, and sometimes the alumni scream out, may all your days be circus days. But this time they really yelled it. And I just was so moved. I just started like, not, bawling, but it just brought a tear to my eye. Like the excitement, the energy, it was just so nice that it still was there for people. And that was my favorite memory.
For me, mine was at Callaway, and we were setting up to do one of our shows, like how Chad was saying that we perform in a lot of shows over at Callaway. And today, though, it was raining, and I mean storming. And so we were thinking, well, no one's going to come, because it's normally people that are staying at the Callaway Gardens Resort that come. We're like, no one's going to come. Like, man, but we still got to do the show because we have a contract. So I guess we'll do it. And we peek our little head out into the crowd, and we see a singular person there. And it was Adam Rhoads. And Adam Rhoads came to our show. And we pretty much did an entire show for Adam and I think one other elderly married couple. They seemed to enjoy it as well. But it was so fun. And it just really struck me because I did theater in high school. And I remember I would be so bummed if we were in front of an empty audience. But no one cared. It was just, wow, we're really just doing this for ourselves right now. And it was like one of the best shows I've ever had, in my opinion.
Adam, what did you think of that show?
That show is amazing because there's one thing to be a performer that's not performing, watching my fellow castmates perform in an audience and telling myself like, okay, you need to have some decorum. There's like normal people here. But when there was no audience, decorum was out the door, and like I just was going crazy. We were cheering for people, like just yelling. It was such a fun show, and the storm was raging on. And something at Callaway's, when it rains really badly, the tent starts to flood. So some people that aren't performing have to squeegee and push water off of the concrete so it doesn't get under our equipment. So not only was I cheering for people doing backflips and their circus acts, but I was like yelling at people, like pushing water, and the music was intense and the wind was howling. It was a whole production in of itself. But yeah, I guess my favorite circus memory, I have two of them. The first one being at the end of my first Callaway. You go the whole summer just running on fumes, constantly hanging out with the kids, putting on a circus show, conditioning, and so many things in between. And if I'm correct, we do 45 shows. And on the last show, when we were done, I was the ringmaster. So I said, may all your days be circus days. And then after that, we all huddled together as a group. And it's just such an emotional experience because it's some people's last time at Callaway. It's some people's last time performing with the circus. And I remember being in that huddle and someone yelled out, I want all of you at my wedding. And we were all laughing and crying. And then somebody said, I want all of you at my funeral. And it just really encapsulates, we're going to be with each other to the end. You know, it's not just, okay, here's some college friends that show up to my wedding. It's going to be, here's some college friends that show up to my funeral. And I thought that just really captured like how accomplished we all felt and how we just grew to such a family through doing the circus. And then my other circus memory would be sophomore year, my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer. So it was just very difficult throughout the whole entire school year dealing with my mom going through chemo treatments and being in and out of the hospital, and updating her on like my circus practices and how the show was coming along. And then for her to become cancer free one day, and then literally the next day come to Tallahassee, and then to be in the audience and to see me perform, it just seemed like the closing of my mom's cancer journey and the closing of my sophomore year circus journey, and just such like a new beginning and like happiness, and just so many things being tied off. So that was like a very valued memory that like I will forever treasure and like be grateful for the circus for, and for the doctors that helped my mom and all of it.
Oh my God, I love that story. I almost cried. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Emotional.
Adam, your stories were the best.
Okay, so now I do want to actually move into my lightning round questions. These are just kind of some fun questions that I throw out to everybody who's on the show. These are not specific to the circus. So the first thing I want to know is, what is everyone's favorite thing about Florida State? And I'm going to say you cannot say the circus, because obviously that's your favorite thing about Florida State.
The landscaping. We are a bio hotspot, and I love it.
Sweet shop.
Oh, the sweet shop. Yes, right across from campus. That place has been around forever. Like I think over 50 years now.
The sucker punch frappuccino. That's gotten me through a lot of days.
I'd say township.
All right. So I guess you guys are gonna have to give me different answers from this. Adam, and Dali, you're gonna have to give me different answers for the next question, because my next question is, what is your favorite place to eat around campus?
We both had food ones. I'm dead.
Mom and pops. When I'm balling on a hot dog, they're always there with a hot dog and a very good lemonade. And they actually have onions that you can put on your hot dogs, which is hard to come by because usually you get ketchup, mustard, and pickle relish.
Yeah, for the incoming students or prospective students who might not know, Mom and Pops is just this little, I don't even know if you'd really call it a chain. It's just like a series of basically like hot dog food trucks that have been on campus for, I don't know, a long time. I mean, at least the 90s. So yeah, the hot dogs they're cheap, and the lemonade is really good. You're right. I love it.
So good. Lunchbox.
Oh, Jenny's Lunchbox. Yeah, that place is delicious.
Lunchbox or Woodchucks?
I would recommend the Bark, which is a vegetarian restaurant and has a fun ambiance. And then also there's Korean barbecue and more, which is on Tennessee Street. It's getting a little bit closer to TCC, but that is a fun, another little restaurant.
All right, I'm going there this weekend. What about you, Chad?
I've always been partial to Rhoads.
The last question I've been asking everyone is, how are you keeping yourself entertained over quarantine?
I've been doing paint by numbers, which you can get those for $12.99 on Amazon, the whole pack. It's really, really fun. It's like the best thing ever. And for, I guess, circus-wise, I was just doing the aerial act requirements, because there's a certain strength requirements that you have to fulfill to have an aerial act. And I was on one this past year, so I wanted to maintain that strength. So 10 pull-ups, 25 push-ups, 30 sit-ups every day. And then a really great ab workout from Cirque du Soleil is called unicycle abs. If anyone wants to do it, really easy. You can do it at home. It's only 5 minutes long. It's great.
Nothing super exciting on my end. I have 3 children who I've been chasing after. And once we got past the homeschool segment, it's just been kind of keeping them occupied. This is my first summer I've actually spent at home, because I'm usually at Cowley Gardens. So this is the first summer I've ever been at home since I was in high school.
Wow.
It's been cool, actually. Being around your family is actually kind of neat.
I think we're all discovering that. Wow, these people I love are actually pretty cool.
Yeah, they have their moments at least, you know.
Did you have anything you're binging or anything, or what you're keeping yourself busy, Celina?
The Sopranos. I'm just about done with that. It's so good, especially season 5. It worked towards that moment. Yeah, that's what I've been binging.
Nice, good choice.
Celina, what about the mask?
What? I didn't hear.
The mask you made.
Yes, during the break, I made a ton of masks for FSU and for the senior center, and cleaning and organizing around the house.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And then my last question that I have for everyone is, if you could only give one piece of advice to our incoming students, what would it be?
Are we allowed to say that the one thing you should do is sign up to audition for the circus? Like number one?
Yeah.
I would definitely say, because I've been having a lot of those conversations because I am fairly young. So I've had a lot of friends that are still in high school that are just now graduating and coming to college. And basically just you get in what you put out. And that I learned from circus, but that applies to everything, you know? So I think just making sure that you're going into this experience ready for anything to happen, because especially in times like these, anything could happen. And not so much as being kept on your toes, but being comfy on your toes.
I guess my piece of advice would be to get outside of your comfort zone. When I came to college, I came in with a very strict set of beliefs and group of people I hang out with. And it wasn't until I came to college that I met people with a variety of different experiences and beliefs. And I found that through getting uncomfortable, I was able to educate myself and become less ignorant than I was about certain thoughts and ideas and lifestyles. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. And when you put yourself in uncomfortable positions, you tend to come out of it learning a lot more and better than you did coming into it.
No, I would just say researching and looking into and taking advantage of everything you can at the university and what the university has to offer. Because it has so much that's the university has so much to offer you outside the classroom. Circus is only one of those things. And obviously, I'm an advocate for the circus, but there are so many things university has to offer. So many people from different backgrounds and different friendships and opportunities that you have at the university that I think try to take advantage as many as you can.
All right. Well, that's my last question for the day. Adam, Dali, Chad, Celina, thank you so much for being here. This was like such a fun conversation. Thank you again just for everything. And go Noles.
Go Noles.
All your
Thanks
circus
for having us.
Yes, may all your days be circus days.
Oh.
Yay!
Thanks again to Adam, Dali, Chad, and Celina for their time. If you'd like to learn more about the Flying High Circus, check out circus.fsu.edu and follow at FSU Flying High Circus on Instagram and Facebook. If you've been enjoying the show, we'd really appreciate you leaving us a rating, review, or recommendation on iTunes or whichever podcast app you use. Word of mouth is also a huge help to us, so please share the show with any of your friends or family members who may enjoy it. On our next episode, we'll have another panel of guests, this time from Florida State's Department of Sports Management within the College of Education. If you have any questions about FSU's sport management major, please send them to us on social media. We're at FSU Admissions on Twitter and Facebook, and at FSU.admissions on Instagram. You can also email questions or feedback on the show to admissions@fsu.edu, including the word podcast in the subject line. As always, our theme music is the world-renowned Florida State University Marching Chiefs, recordings courtesy of Mark Records, Clarence, New York, markcustom.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show in Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or on your podcast app of choice. Thanks again for listening, and go Noles.